First story, exit affair or midlife crisis? A lot has gone in the last 6 weeks, so I will try and capture as best as I can. I'm a 43M and she 45. We have been together 12 years and have 2 young kids. 6 weeks ago, while drinking one evening, she said her desire had disappeared, which was a shock to me. Not knowing if it was buried forever and she needed to explore, find her younger self that she feels she missed out on. I'll add that while we have had ups and downs over the years, particularly after kids, I've always worked hard to ensure we had regular and varied intimacy. A few days later I pushed her some more with her head was, asking if there was someone else. She denied it, even when I got quite specific with likely guys. And then suddenly she said she wanted a break in our relationship, saying she needed space and didn't know about our future, suggesting we have a 3-6 month temporary split to see how she feels. The following 2 weeks my mind and body was in fight or flight mode, quite horrible. We continued to regularly talk, saying how sorry she was with the situation, and she didn't know her feelings with how they had changed, including the line, "She loves me though not in love with me." She's recently lost a relative and mentioned multiple times about her age with a birthday on the horizon. She keeps saying about wanting to find her desire, and also adding that she felt like a failure in our relationship. I am more than happy to help her work through to the next phase of her life in any way I can. However, my gut was screaming that there was more to this. From losing her phone all the time around the house, to now it never leaving her side and being much secretive caused alarm bells to ring. Tied together with lots of texting that was quite secretive. Some texts I was able to oversee were quite a few racy messages, suggesting she has been intimate with the guy from the local gym. Over the weeks I have seen and captured significant evidence that backs up my thoughts of physical stuff going on. He is married with 2 kids. While I am so tempted to confront, I am trying to allow myself time to process and do the right thing for myself and our kids, and know the knock-on effect, particularly as they're going to be living together for the foreseeable future due to finances, probably at least a year. We have had an amazing and fun-packed 12 years up to now. Some hard times though, such a family unit full of what I believed was happiness, so this has turned my world upside down. With her changing overnight with very little reasoning, I started doing lots of reading, audiobooks listening, and Googling research. And so many of the signs point to a midlife crisis, with how she changed since the bomb drop. Emotionally and physically distanced, lying, change in clothing, you deserve better, very emotional and teary with highs and lows, and just seeming like there's multiple personalities in there. There's a high chance of hormones perimenopause adding to the mix. I've dug deep since this happened though, now feel much more calmer and grounded. I've found myself a good therapist to deal with the initial trauma and started journaling. I was wanting to reconcile those time moves on. I am not sure what is best for me and kids. My parents split when I was young, as did my partners, and it feels like history is repeating itself in a way I don't want. While I have found a therapist, suggesting it to her on her own or as a couple is met with resistance. I have been following much of the MLC advice on focusing on what I can control and working on myself, which I will carry on doing so. I feel like I am a crossroads. Almost all midlife crises, MLC reading suggests that any confrontation will make things much worse and set her back and even implode her as her fragile mindset as she can't cope. Yet I do wonder at times if she is really going through that, and instead it is form of exit affair which I never thought her character would allow, and therefore wanting to confront for my integrity, though not really knowing how much pain that will cause in the future. And I don't want to break her if I am wrong and it's a MLC. If she is going through an MLC and I stand and wait for her, wondering if when she comes out of the tunnel she'll have a reality check that we can then work through. Though I know the time frame on that is unknown, if at all. There is then the challenge of trust and shattering what we had. She used to have such high integrity and honesty. This feels like some crazy horror film that I play the main character. Thanks for reading, and any thoughts you may share. We aren't married, which I should have clarified. She hasn't gone anywhere. We are still living together. Second story. Asking my wife if she's been unfaithful. I'm mostly treating this as a vent, but hopefully I'll get some comments that make me feel better too. I, 28 am married to my wife, 34F, of 4 years, dated for 2. When dating we had a great sex life. We actually weren't sexually intimate until 6 months into dating. She was my first while I was not. After 2 years of dating, we decided to get married as we both wanted to start a family. At this point I had brought up I wanted to be celibate until our wedding night. We had a short engagement of 2 months. She likes the idea and so we agreed. Come our wedding night she says she is too tired and that we should do it at our honeymoon hotel in the morning. This devastated me as I had always dreamed to having sex on my wedding night and it had been taken away from me. This created a scar in our relationship that, if I'm not lying, I still feel resentment to this day. First day at the hotel was pretty much the same story, but the rest of the week we had sex every other day, one time spontaneous on the beach. When we got back from our honeymoon I initiated 3 days after getting back. She turned me down, and the repeat happened for 4 more days, until she said we should have a break from sex to work on our relationship. I will take full responsibility for my mistakes, and I had always prioritized my wife over other things, gaming, sports, internet. I don't blame her for saying this looking back on it, but at the time it created so much spite and anger that I distanced myself further down the relationship. We didn't have sex for about 2 months after that. It was pretty much the case of infrequent sex until about 1-2 years ago, when we decided to schedule sex once a week. We get into a okay but stale place in our relationship and sex life. Eventually we have a daughter, 1.5 who is the absolute joy of our life. This separates our lives further, as it revolves around taking turns of watching her, and we rarely interact. This was nice for a while, but I felt my wife becoming more distant and slowly checking out of the marriage. She also suffers from depression and anxiety, and I had continued to neglect her for the things I wanted to do. About a weeks ago, I tell her I feel she is checked out and she confirms she is. That she is in a bad place mentally and says we both don't deserve this. I tell her that I will work with her and we can get through this, but it feels like there is a wall between us. After that conversation it really hit me how badly I fucked up. I love my wife. I love the relationship we have. I love how great a mom she is and everything about her. I decide that I'm willing to make all sacrifices in order to try and rebuild our relationship. I cut out 90% of my time spent on video games, started syncing our schedules and going to the gym, doing more chores around the house, and started working out. I've honestly been much happier. A week after this she mentions that she appreciates the effort, but it's too much too fast for where she is mentally. I'm not sure if she thinks I'm doing this just for C, or if she doesn't believe these changes will be permanent. I plan to, but I tell her I miss her. I'm here for her and if I'm being too much let me know. Which brings us to today. She is still distant and I just have a feeling something is off. There are some signs but no hard evidence. We share a location and I've never seen anything too suspicious. I love her, but I want to know what hill I'm climbing. I realize the mistakes I've made, and that I couldn't expect my wife to be there for me sexually if I wasn't there for her emotionally. I said in a previous comment that I felt like she lied to me about sex, but I realized that I lied to her first about who I was. Tomorrow I'll be asking my wife if she's been unfaithful to me. I'm going to put my heart on the table and tell her. I want to what we had. I want my daughter to have loving parents. I want to feel desired. I want my wife to be happy again. I want life that gave up for my own selfish reasons. Third story. My 43 wife, 42F, has been having affairs in a swingers app for 2 years during our 4 years long distance marriage. How do I move forward in our relationship? My wife and I met about 17 years ago in school. I learned about her promiscuity in the past and found it somewhat alluring. Eventually, we started dating, and having been cheated on before, I once told her my stance on cheating, that I would simply leave and forget her. Harsh sounding, I know, but I feel like I said it from a place of past heartbreak. My future wife and I lived together for about 3 years, a good portion of it during the lockdown. We got along great, and the sex was great as well. She would make allusions to us being swingers when we get old and bored of each other. Due to work, my wife lived about 12 hours away from me by car. I spent substantial time flying and driving to visit her, as her schedule was stricter than mine. We saw each other quite a bit actually, about every 2 to 6 weeks. It was hard, and I found myself, for a time, completely overcome with suspicion that my wife was cheating on me. I dealt with it by working on myself and sitting down with a therapist. Some of the clues, that at the time I thought were bordering on delusions, were that she was much less nice to me, and our sex life became strained. I definitely played a part in our relationship weakening. We moved in together yesterday in our first forever home in a new town. I suddenly felt compelled to look at her phone and found a photograph of her in a threesome. I walked up to her and showed her the photo. It is all kind of a blur, so forgive me for not going into detail, can do so if asked. We talked about it at length. To be honest, I felt somewhat vindicated, if that's the right word, for all of my suspicions in the past. She told me she met a swingers couple and found the idea compelling. She told me that over the course of our long-distance relationship, she found it very hard to feel connected to me on the level we did before we lived apart. She showed me the app she used and told me about the 4 individual men and 2 couples she had sex with. She told me she wanted this year together to be a fresh start, for us to live together and rebuild the relationship we used to have before we lived apart, and then confess. She told me her deadline was about a year from now, at which time she was hoping I would join in her newfound love of swinging and BDSM. She says she was going to abstain from the swinging lifestyle until then. She did indicate full intention to continue this lifestyle, if we could make it work for both of us. She did say the dom sub kink she enjoyed was not something she wanted from me, saying she felt it would hurt our daytime relationship. That part is hard for me to fully accept. I asked to be given all of the photos from her phone, in a hidden folder, as a start for our new no secrets life. I have decided, and told her this, for now to stay. This is very hard for me, especially given my past heartbreak, gaslighting, and feelings of inadequacy. I could go on. We had sex last night, good sex, and she held me like she hadn't in a long time. I continue to reserve the right to leave. I have told her if we cannot work this out, it is not fair to her or me to keep the relationship. I'll admit, I genuinely could see myself enjoying this swinging lifestyle, as it has been a mainstay of my pornographic use. I suppose I am not sure what I could ask of this group except, how would you proceed in this? I know about individual and couples therapy. I want help finding ways for rebuilding trust, although I suppose I never trusted her. I want her to feel consequences for what she has done. I don't want to be toothless and let her feel she has gotten away with it, all the while not becoming a petty, vindictive, and passive-aggressive shell of a man worth loving. Maybe I just want to talk about it. After discovering that my wife had been cheating on me during our long-distance relationship, I confronted her and she confessed to having multiple partners, including a threesome. She had planned to tell me about her actions after we moved in together and hoped to explore swinging and BDSM together in the future. Despite my past heartbreak and ongoing feelings of inadequacy, I've decided to stay for now. I'm conflicted because I could see myself enjoying the swinging lifestyle, which aligns with my pornographic interests. I'm looking for advice on how to rebuild trust, establish consequences for her actions, and avoid becoming bitter or resentful. Fourth story. We made it to a year. 12 months ago today I learned a horrible truth. that 20 years ago, early in my marriage, my wife was unfaithful. She was raped and responded to that by engaging in risky behaviors with men and alcohol over a 1-year period. In the end, there were 8 total APs, 3 assaults, coercion, consensual sex, love letters and feelings, lies, deceit, manipulation. I learned of childhood sexual emotional abuse and multiple infidelities going all the way back to the very beginning of our relationship. She was not who I thought she was. Life and love were not what I thought they were. I am a completely different person than I was a year ago. Everything has changed. I've woken up. It's hard to decide what's fitting for a 1-year post-a post. So rather than go on and on about my story, which I could easily do, or go on and on about my pain and suffering through this, also easy, I thought it would be better to approach it with optimism and positivity. I made it. I'm going to be okay. I have joy and happiness in my life. I feel loved and appreciated. I am treated with empathy, respect, dignity. I am healing and I am growing. My partner is here for me and I am here for her. We are closer now than we ever have been. We are raw and authentic. We are open, honest and transparent. We are working together to unwind the traumas of childhood, to reverse the negative coping skills and habits we both adopted as children, becoming better for ourselves, for each other and most importantly, for our children. The infidelity is an unfortunate part of our story that is painful and sad, but it is not our entire story. It does not define us or dictate who or what or how we will be. We are approaching life and facing life with intention, choosing how we want to be. It happened, it sucks, but it's over. We are looking and moving forward, together. Life is good. I've learned that what was most important for me on this journey was for my wife to see past her shame, to get it, and to show up to support me, knowing she was the one who destroyed me. She's doing that. She shows up consistently, every day, without fail, and she is no longer running away from what she did. I've also learned that she can't make this go away or make it better. It just is and always will be. It's part of me now. I've learned to accept that, and I'm allowing space in my life to pause and feel my feelings when needed and to keep looking ahead. The only path for healing in this comes from within myself. Nobody else can do this for me. Wishing all of you the best in your journey. 5th story. First time happening, and it broke me, 39M. I don't know what to expect from publishing here, but I try to get some comfort after the soul-breaking news that I got today from my ex. I'm a 39 male from France, and I'm very this kind of loyal, committed and love-bombing boyfriend when it comes to being in a relationship. I've just gotten out of a previous relationship that tore me down as well, and I needed to see therapists for 3 years because of it. Anyway, I meet this magnificent woman at salsa class in 2021, and we both get along really well. We dance a lot together and we develop a true friendship with time passing by. I could already start feeling the butterflies in my stomach, but I needed to crush any hope of getting a relationship, since at that time she had a boyfriend. In 2022, she invites me to her birthday, and every one of her friends are here. Obviously her boyfriend was here too. However, after the party, his BF wanted to spend time with friends, leaving us two alone to enjoy the city nightlife. We ended up having the most beautiful accidental date night and we laughed about it. Little did she know I started having a strong crush for her. Fast forward, 2 months later, she calls me admitting that she had feelings for me and she left her boyfriend because she was feeling lost. I couldn't start anything yet because I was in another city for a month at that time. I learned that 1 week after her breakup, she already found a sex friend while waiting for me. First big red flag that I shouldn't have ignored. It broke me down a little, but I was mad in love. We ended up starting a relationship together, while she admitted having cheated on her ex 4 times during her previous relationship. Second red flag. But she had this very thoughtful discussion where she said she grew up from all of these things, and promised she wouldn't make someone suffer again. I believed her. In 2024, this year, things started being very weird. There was times where she would be very anxious and I tried to calm her. She met a guy from university and started texting him a lot, until 1 a.m., which brought up a lot of arguments since I can't accept that kind of shady behavior. She showed me a lot of her conversations with her male friends, but I kept seeing the notifications from that just friend from uni. And every time I asked to see what he was saying, she would be mad and kept it hidden from me. 103rd flag. She started being very distant, and sometimes she would sleep at her flat saying that she needed to spend time alone. We broke up in July, and her reasons for the breakup didn't make sense at all. That broke me a little as well, mostly because I was coping with my uncle's death at that time. Today she came back to take her stuff and we tried to have a calm conversation. She admitted that the reasons behind the breakup and all the anxious behaviors was because she was cheating with that guy, that mother friend from uni. They had been sleeping together behind my back since February, 7 whole months. My soul was completely shattered today. I'm mad because I was right. I'm mad because I should have opened my eyes and got out of this relationship way sooner. I'm sick and disgusted that a woman who promised not to hurt did the very thing that made me suffer the most. I learned that she even slept with him when I was at my uncle's funeral. How could someone do that to me? What did I do to deserve such a cruel thing? I've never been cheated on before, and I always believed that these kind of things happened to unhealthy boyfriends or even in movies. But here I am crying my eyes out like a baby. I'm so lost and confused. I'm tired of crying, and I'm traumatized. Thank you for listening.